Okay, hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about should we be trying to change the world, right? Should we be trying to fix what's wrong? Should we be trying to shift all the things that are falling apart on the planet? Should we be doing what we can to try to make positive changes in the world? Or should we be just trying to survive? Should we be just trying to keep our heads above water? Should we be doing what we can do for ourselves to keep ourselves safe? And should that really be our focus? And I feel like this is a really important question that we need to take the time to answer. And just so you know, Marcus is just going to get a delivery. So he'll be passing back and forth, but then that'll be it. Um, so I actually got asked this question by a client a few months ago. And I felt, again, like it was like a really brilliant question. And I think it's something that we absolutely need to talk about and think about. And I think it's one of these questions that, again, has many different answers for every single one of us. And I think that the answer that is right for each one of us is going to change throughout our lifetime. I don't think that there is one answer for everybody or one answer for everybody all the time because reality is dynamic, reality is complex, and we need to be the kind of people who can embrace the complexity of reality and allow that to be what it is so that we can find just what our next steps are. Okay? So when we are looking out at the world right now, and I feel like literally whenever anyone is going to watch this, whether you're watching this today, whether you're watching this 6 months from now, whether you're watching this 10 years from now, it's probably going to be true that you can look around the world and see a lot of things to be really worried about. And whether or not those things are directly impacting you right now, or if they are things that you are worried are going to eventually start impacting you, or if they are things that are, you know, just happening on the planet that are very deeply concerning, and you're an empathetic person who cares about how other people feel and the experiences other people are having, you are going to look at the world and say, there are a lot of problems. There are a lot of things that are going very wrong and a lot of things that absolutely need to be fixed and changed. And like I say, because it's eventually going to affect me, or because I just care about people being in positions of pain and being harmed and not being helped, and that bothers me. And this is because, again, we live on a planet that is probably never going to be perfect. We are probably never going to have a society or a culture or a humanity that's fully in alignment with reality and where we're living in a utopia where there are no problems and we have, uh, innovated ourselves out of every horrible thing, and we are now living in perfect peace. I don't know that any of us alive today listening to this video are going to live long enough to see that be our reality. And I know that in the spirituality, self help, personal growth world, there are a lot of people out there who want to make promises that there's going to be this big awakening, that there's going to be this big reveal, that there's going to be this big transformation that happens, and then the whole planet shifts and we're in a state of alignment and everything is perfect. But generally speaking, if we kind of, do the thing of the best predictor of the future is the past, we can see that humanity has never grown like that, right? Humanity tends to grow in stair steps. We go forward and we go back. We repeat cycles. We are kind of exactly the way that we would think of ourselves when we're thinking how we make progress as individuals in life. We don't tend to have big revelations and then radically transform our lives, and that's how it works. You see what I'm saying? That, if that happens, is a rare occurrence, and I don't think it happens to most people. Most people, as we learn and grow and change in this life reality, that learning, that growth, and that change happens in a spiral upwards, right? Meaning, when I say spiral upwards, I mean we tend to go over the same stuff over and over and over again. And just every time we go over it, we get a little bit wiser, we get a little bit more educated, we get a little bit more aware, we make a little bit more progress, and eventually over time, we can end up in a place where we've made radical transformations and we've really shifted ourselves into like a completely different space. But when we were looking at our progress in more of a kind of narrow view of day to day or week to week or month to month, it could look like we were going forward and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and not really making that much progress, because that spiral can sometimes look like backwards progress. And like I say, generally speaking, when we look at ourselves as individuals, how we grow, that growth is just something that happens over time. We can see big transformation over long periods of time. But when we look at shorter snippets of time, it's not that much transformation. Things look like they're moving pretty slowly, and oftentimes they look like they're moving backwards. So if we can kind of embrace and accept that that's what it looks like for us on an individual level, we can then start to understand that it is probably the most likely thing that this is also what it's going to look like for us as a humanity. That this way of growing, that this way of shifting, that this way of moving in a positive direction is going to happen slowly, over time, in a way that sometimes looks like we're going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. And again, when we zoom out and look at the way that we have grown as a humanity over the hundreds of thousands of years we've been alive, we can see that we have done a lot of really great growth. There are a lot of things that used to be very much acceptable, that were quite harmful and terrible and barbaric, that are no longer part of how we live. There are a lot of things that are monumentally better now than they've ever been. And that growth and that change, generally speaking, occurred over time. There wasn't a great awakening. There wasn't a great moment where everything changed. There wasn't a huge shift that was the thing that shifted everything. There were periods of intense tumultuousness, intensity that absolutely have led to breakthroughs. And we may be in one of those kind of periods right now where we're at a kind of crux, and it can feel really easy to think this is the first time this has ever happened, or this is the worst it's ever been. But again, if we look back through history, the moment we're in right now is a moment we've experienced before. We have experienced moments of great upheaval, of great intensity, where it kind of felt like the entire globe was on fire. And in this circumstance, there literally is fire. Where it seemed like everything was going to fall apart. And then humanity was able to make some shifts that led us in a better direction. Right? We've experienced world wars before. We've experienced climate crisis before. We've experienced things that are big wake-up calls for us before. where it did really seem like this could be the end. And it was a wake-up call for us. So there is a very good chance that if the best predictor of the future is the past, that we may be in one of those moments again right now. Right? That we are definitely in a time where things are very intense. And what we are experiencing in the way that we are experiencing it hasn't happened before in this way. But we can also look back and see that humanity has been through a cycle like this before. It's been through a cycle like this many times, where things get really, really intense and really, really loud. And humanity then has to make a choice to change things. And up until now, we have. So there is that to kind of hold on to. Which leads us into, what was it that caused us to make the positive changes that we've made? Because we have, as a humanity, made positive changes. And generally speaking, it was the people who could see the error of our ways, that could see the destruction and the chaos of the systems that we've had previously, that stepped up and used their voice and were loud enough to say, we need things to change. And enough of those voices spoke up, enough of those voices participated to create that change. Okay? So we have seen this before. Not exactly in this way, not exactly like this. But if you study history, if you study politics and history of the politics and the history of world wars and the history of the things that we have been through, you will see that we have faced crises like this before. You will. And you will see that these crises have historically led to changes. They have historically led to us changing course. And again, that saying of fucking around and finding out, we've fucked around and then found out and then fucked around and then found out and then fucked around and then found out many, many times over our history as human beings. And we have reached these crescendo points many times as a humanity. And what has made the change, what has helped us get through these crescendo points to creating ways of life that were better, were enough of the people realizing that what we had before was not working, that what we had before was harmful, was toxic, was not good for all of us, was exploitative, and standing up and saying, we won't stand for this anymore. So, when we look at ourselves and we say, okay, should I be working to change the world for the better? Or should I just be trying to adapt to the chaos that's happening? Overarchingly, of course, we want to say, we want to be a part of the positive change. Right? If you are looking around the world and you are seeing that it is chaotic and that the choices that we're making as a humanity are driving us towards destruction, I want you to understand that your voice matters. That your way of being, your life, matters. Because again, as we look at history, when we look at the things that changed how things function on this planet fundamentally, it was never one great person coming in and saving us from everything. It was never one organization that changed everything. It was never one thing, one being, one savior. It was the collective getting loud enough that their political leaders and their leaders in general had to change the way they were doing things. It was the collective. It was the energy and the understanding and the protest and the awareness and the change in value systems of the collective that caused the leaders to have to change. So I really want you to understand that even if you feel like you are just one person and your one voice and your one vote and your one life doesn't matter, if we all take that on, if every single one of us were to believe that and live like that, that's how we guarantee we don't make it through this crescendo point. Right? If all of us are to say, my life doesn't matter, my voice doesn't matter, my awareness doesn't matter, my changing the way that I do things doesn't matter because I'm just one person and my singular effect is so small that I may as well not do it at all. If we all do that, that's how we guarantee that we don't make it through the crescendo point. Okay? I want us, and again, this is what I say to everyone when they are going through a tough time in their individual life. When we're feeling lost and we're feeling hopeless and we're feeling like everything is chaos and we have no control, and what we're really feeling, right, is that I don't know that I want to exert effort into trying to make positive changes in my own life where things are hard and chaotic, and I've tried everything I've known to try, and there's no guarantee that if I put in the effort, I'm going to get a positive outcome. So I'm not sure if I want to put in the effort. What I always say is, you don't have to, but we know that if you don't put in the effort, we know what the outcome of that is going to be. Right? If we do not try, if we do not put in the effort, if we just give up and let ourselves just, crumble into the madness, we know what that's going to lead to. We have that as a guarantee. So even though we may not know for a fact that putting in the effort is going to get us where we want to go, or that it's going to work the way we want it to work, we know it's the only option we have for change. So yes, it is true in our individual lives, right? When we are saying, okay, I'm struggling, I'm suffering, things are hard, and I don't know if the effort that I'm going to put in is going to be worth it. I don't know if I'm going to get the results that I want. I don't know if I'm going to be able to heal my illness, or if I'm going to be able to find the love of my life, or if I'm going to be able to heal my childhood trauma totally, or whatever it is that we're going for. We know if we do nothing, we guarantee we won't get there. So our options are guarantee we don't get there, or at least put in the effort that we can put in, and see what kind of better we can create. Yes? So even though we may not be able to create the perfect thing that we want, even though we may not be able to guarantee that we're going to get the exact outcome we're going for, we know if we put in effort, we probably can make things better. We know if we put in no effort, things are probably just going to get worse. Because that just seems to be how life works. Like when people say you're either growing or dying, I kind of think that that's generally speaking true. Remembering that sometimes growth looks like rest, looks like not continuing to climb forward, looks like integration. Yes, so growing and dying doesn't always mean putting in 100% effort, pedal to the metal, giving it your all. But if we are not working towards growth, life will deteriorate. So on the individual level, we always have two choices. Do nothing and expect things to probably get worse. Generally speaking, they don't just stay the same. Generally speaking, in this life, things don't just stay bad. If they're on a negative trajectory, they tend to disintegrate. When we're on a positive trajectory, if we're not putting in the effort to keep ourselves moving in that direction, things will tend to disintegrate. And it is the exact same thing with the collective. We have to be continually working towards demanding something better. Otherwise, things tend to degrade. So even though putting in the effort may not give us the exact results we want, we do know that putting in the effort will allow us to grow to the degree that we are capable of growing. That is the mindset I want all of us to take on. Even if I put in the effort, even if I don't get what I want, even if it's not the ideal, perfect thing, even if putting in the effort doesn't mean getting to the ultimate place, pretty much guarantee it's going to be better to put in the effort and get to where you can get. It's going to be better to put in the effort to get to where you can get than it is going to be to let things disintegrate. Many of us really want to believe that there's a third option of just having things stay how they are. That we don't put in effort and then things just stay how they are. But that just generally is not how life works. We're either going to put in the effort and see where we can get in terms of positive change and positive growth, or we're not going to put in the effort and things are going to probably get worse. And it's the exact same thing with the collective. We can do nothing. And then we must expect that it's going to get worse. Because that is just how things function. If those of us who are seeing the problems that we're seeing, if those of us who can understand that many, many things on this planet are messed up and that we're heading in a negative direction in a lot of ways, if those of us who are seeing this allow ourselves to become apathetic and say, my life doesn't matter, my vote doesn't count, my choices don't mean anything, I'm not going to try, we are voting and contributing to the chaos. And as hard as that might be to swallow or to understand, that is the reality. Because your life because you exist, because you are here, because you are alive, you are part of the collective. And you are a vote. So when you choose to do nothing, when you choose to say, it's hopeless, I give up, I'm not going to try, you are a vote for the chaos. Now again, from the self-love perspective, this does not mean I'm saying go burn yourself out. This does not mean I'm saying you need to be fighting for every cause and involving yourself in everything and working towards liberation for all beings and spending your entire life doing this. Aaliyah, does this mean I put my left foot in, I put my left foot out, I put my left foot in and test the waters out? Yes, I will get to that, right? So it does not mean that we burn ourselves out. It does not mean we need to be involved in absolutely everything. It does not mean we harm ourselves trying to create positive change. Rather, this means coming back to that initial question. It means figuring out how to find a life that's sustainable and enough for you, so that whatever you have left over, you can use as energy to put towards positive change. It means really getting serious with yourself about where you have the power to vote for something different. Where that is within your wheelhouse. And it doesn't require you to drown yourself in the process. It means looking at where you have a passion and where your strengths are and allowing that to be enough, knowing you're not going to be able to be involved in everything. You're not going to be able to be what everyone thinks you should be in terms of a positive impact. Knowing that means you're going to play your small role with your life, and understanding that, again, as all of us do that imperfectly, that's how change happens. Okay? So, first things first is, yes, to a degree, you need to be adapting to how things are. Meaning, it is important that you have a way of life that is sustainable enough for you. And that is easier for a lot of us than it is for others. Okay? We do not all come from the same background. We don't all have the same opportunities. We don't all have the same capital. We don't all have the same amount of time in the day. We don't all have the same physical, mental, and emotional capacity. We are all at very different places as individuals on this planet. And what I see way too much in the woke community, in the communities of people who are seeing that there are problems and who are calling for change, is way too much expectation of what it looks like to perfectly demand change and to be a perfect ally or to be a perfect activist, or what each individual believes we all should be doing to create change on the planet. And there's so much infighting and so much shaming and so much you're not doing it right and you're not doing enough and you're not doing it the way you should be doing it. And this is just the most counterproductive thing we could be doing as a collective. Okay? As a collective, of people who are seeing that there are big problems and seeing that, yeah, radical change does need to happen in all these different sectors. We need to recognize that not everyone is us. Not everyone has the same perspective as us. Not everyone has the same capacity as us. Not everyone has the same ability as us. Not everyone has the same, drive and passion that we do in the ways that we do, the knowledge we have, the experience we have. And it's not about all of us being perfect activists and perfect allies and perfect change makers that's going to make the difference. Rather, we want to be people who are encouraging everyone to do what they can do. It makes no sense to me to go up to people who are genuinely trying to do what they can and to offer what they can offer within the scope of their capacity, to go up to them and say, you're doing it wrong. Unless they are truly causing harm in some way that they seem to not be able to see, like causing actual harm. Like real, you can point it out, this is causing more harm than good. If people are trying, we need to be encouraging that. We need to be supportive of that. If people are trying and we actually want change, people need to be motivated to participate with positivity. Calling out everybody who you perceive to be doing it imperfectly is just going to lead to a world where everyone gives up. As much as you might really believe that if we don't do it perfect, we're at the end, this is the end, we have to do it perfect right now, I can guarantee you again, this isn't the case. We've been here before. Humanity has never once been perfect before. We've never had the perfect activist. We've never had the perfect person. If you look at all of our heroes, of people who really did change the way things worked, you're gonna find shit in their life. We have never once had a perfect change maker, someone with absolutely no dirt on their hands. And yet, change has been made. So again, it's not to say we don't call out violence where violence is there. We don't call out abuse where abuse is there. We do. We must. That is imperative. But we also need to make room for the fact that everybody is going to do this imperfectly. Everybody is going to do this imperfectly. Everyone is going to have their lack of capacity, their lack of resource, their lack of understanding and awareness. And we can absolutely say, hey, I think you're causing harm here. I think you might be making it worse in a way that you might not be aware of, right? And we need to start with assuming that the person means well, unless and until we find out later that they don't. Yeah, we need to assume that people are trying their best. And if we are going to call them out on something that is actually harmful, that we do it in a way that's respectful and loving, rather than shamey and blamey and guilting people. Because again, all that's going to lead to is people giving up, and we don't want that. And we need to have enough respect and compassion for ourselves to be able to be very realistic about what we have to offer and where our vote counts and where we can make that vote, and where going farther than that causes us harm. Okay? So this is why I never stand up here and say, this is what everyone should be doing. You need to be doing this many posts on social media every day about this cause. You need to be doing this with your diet. You need to be doing this with your activism. You need to be, no longer spending money on this and no longer spending money on that and doing this and doing that. Because there are people out there, there are single moms out there who are working 2 or 3 non-living wage paying jobs, who are going to feed their kids McDonald's sometimes. And I have no business standing up here and saying everyone needs to boycott McDonald's because it's evil. If that means that family then doesn't have food. Do you see what I'm saying? That is not fair. That is not okay. That is not where progress is going to happen. If, on the other hand, you have the time, the money, the resources to boycott McDonald's, to invest in people who are doing, local produce and organic and all of these awesome things, regenerative, the things we want to see, you should. That is what you should be doing. If you have the time, energy, and money to support something better without drowning yourself, you should. If you have the emotional capacity to be an educator on the system of things, so you're not necessarily directly speaking to every specific thing that's happening, but you're trying to get people to see that this is all part of a system, you should do that. If you're deeply passionate about a very specific thing, a way of eating, a way of posting on social media, an issue, a specific problem that's specifically happening, you should do that. But just know that not everyone is going to have that same passion about that thing. And that doesn't mean that they aren't helping. That doesn't mean that they aren't participating. They are doing it in a different way, or they are doing it in another area. Because the reality is that we are living in a world right now that has a lot of really big problems. So just because you are deeply focused on one doesn't mean that someone else who's deeply focused on another one is wrong. We just have different focuses, and that's okay, because there are lots of different things that need to change. And again, the world needs all of us who are deeply passionate about this or that or this or that to be actively using that passion for that thing. And when all of us do that, all of the things that need to be addressed get addressed. So the question you need to ask yourself is, what do I need to keep my head above water? Because at the end of the day, if you drown yourself trying to help the world, that's one less person we have trying to help the world. We can't afford to lose you. Whoever you are listening to this right here, right now, you care, you want the world to be different, you have awareness that things need to change, and you want to be a part of that positive change, we cannot afford to lose you. Okay? We cannot afford to lose you. You are going to do it imperfectly. You can't be involved in everything. There are going to be people out there who tell you that you're doing it wrong or not enough or too much or whatever. And at the end of the day, we need you. So, practically speaking, from where you are right here, right now, what life choices are you capable of making that move us towards the world you want to see? That do not require you to drown yourself in the process. So please do not compare yourself to people who have more time more energy and more resources than you and think I'm shitty and my vote doesn't count because I can't do as much as those other people. No, your vote counts. If you're the single mother who's barely making ends meet, it's not your job to boycott McDonald's and to only use sustainable fashion and all of these things. That's not your job. If the thing you can do is be one of the people out there who are kind to other people, if the thing you can do that contributes to the world that we want to see is that you learn to have compassion for yourself and to see yourself as good enough and worthy of love, and then you start to live like that, that is more than enough. That is good enough. Don't ask yourself to do more than that. Because if more than that causes you to not be able to keep your head above water, none of us win. If you are the kind of person, like for me, I have the time, the energy, the resources to make a shit ton of free content that I hope helps people eventually wake up to the system. Right? I speak to a bunch of broad, overarching concepts. I educate on the system, so I don't necessarily speak to every individual thing going on. And that pisses a lot of people off. And I get that. And I validate that completely. But that is not my specialty. That is not where I have power. Where I have power is to continually educate on the system, the bigger picture, so that you can then see your individual issue through the bigger system, and hopefully that helps you to not get stuck in the minutia of it, but rather to be able to be proactive about it by looking at the systems and how the system is causing the individual issue, and how, again, it's systems changes that are going to address the individual issue, that we can't just keep focusing on the little fires, because the little fires are a result of the system. I have the energy and the resources to buy local organic produce and to boycott McDonald's. And so therefore I should. That is, in my opinion, for myself, my responsibility. But I'm never going to turn around and say that everyone should be doing that, because not everyone is resourced the way that I am. There are people out there who are much more able-bodied than I am, who are much more politically motivated and politically active than I am, and who go out there and protest and put their bodies in the way. And that is something I admire greatly, but know that I can't do. But that doesn't make either of us right or wrong. We're all just doing it differently. So we must look at what we can sustainably offer within the context of keeping our heads above water. Because again, we live in a system right now that makes it incredibly difficult to fight the system. The system is, I think, very much set up this way, where a lot of us are in a state of fear and lack and not enough. And I don't mean that like spiritually, I mean that actually. Because of the way our exploitative systems are set up, that we lack community, we lack resources, we lack support. We're just trying to not sink ourselves. And so we don't have a lot of time, energy, and resources left over to look at the system and to fight it. And you must not guilt yourself for that. That's not your fault. And again, it's up to you to do what you can do within what are shitty systems that make it really hard to fight the system. And for those of us in the middle, we should be doing more. We cannot give up. It is our responsibility to be working to change the world in the ways that we can afford to do it. Because if we don't, the people who are drowning in this system, it should not be on their shoulders to change the system. The people who are being the most exploited by this system should not be the ones who are being called on to change the system. Okay? We need to have enough empathy as people in the middle to say, you shouldn't have to fight for yourself like this. Even though I am not in your position of vulnerability and your issue might not affect me personally, we must be good allies. We must fight for these people and for their rights, because it shouldn't be their job to fight for themselves when they are already up against a battle just surviving. So we, again, need to get really real with ourselves about where the system is exploiting us. And that's not our fault. Where we are participating in exploitation and can stop. So this is, again, a huge part of, the things that we buy and the things that we produce. And this is where I think this self-love path is so important. We need to start checking out of the mental system of our system that keeps saying you need more. You need to have more, you need to do more, you need to be more, you need to be constantly navel gazing and improving yourself and healing your childhood trauma. Like, we do that to the degree that it's actually helpful, but we can't be doing that to the degree that it's now distracting us from disengaging from the things we need to disengage from, and from engaging in demanding change where we need to be engaging in demanding change. Okay? The self-love path is about getting off of that self-improvement path that's calling us to be constantly in a state of trying to micromanage our own reality, to make it perfect, to make ourselves perfect, to have more income, to have more followers, to constantly be in this state of enlightenment, whatever we want to call it. That's the system. That system of manufactured discontent. That's telling us that we don't have enough, that we aren't enough, that we aren't doing enough, when really we are, and we do have enough, and we don't need more. And now we have things left over that we can contribute, where we don't ask for something in return because we can afford to give it. We must be doing that if we want to see the world change. We must. We absolutely must. There is no way around it. And we need every single one of us who can, who has extra resources, who has extra time, who have the passion for whatever it is you have the passion for, to be putting forth that passion to what matters to you to change. And don't worry about it not being everything. And don't worry about the people who tell you you're focusing on the wrong thing, or you're doing it wrong, or you're not doing it enough. We need you in it imperfectly, more than we need you to back away to figure out how to do it perfect and then do it. Because there isn't going to be a perfect. None of us are going to do this perfectly. So, like I say, absolutely, we call out abuse and harm and really actually causing the problem to be worse. But to just nitpick someone because they're not doing it the exact way you would do it, that is not helpful. And we don't have time for that anymore. We don't have time for that right now. When we're at crescendo points, we don't have time for nitpicking perfection. We just need all hands on deck doing the best that they can. Okay? So yes, I think it's fair to say that we are at a crescendo point. In a lot of ways. In a lot of different areas. And big changes need to happen in a lot of different areas in society. Which means we need all hands on deck doing what all hands are capable of doing. We need everyone imperfectly doing what they can do imperfectly. Because that's how change happens. Change does not happen because a couple of people did it perfectly perfect. Change does not happen because we found the issue that we all need to focus on, and if we just fix this one thing, everything is better. There are so many things going on right now. And if you are participating in any of it, that's good enough. There is no one issue that is the crux issue. It's all a result of the same system. So look at the system. Look at the bigger picture. Look at how your one issue is part of the bigger system. And then look at where you can start to change the system with your daily habits, with your daily vote, with your way of being, the way you interact with people, the things you buy, the things you participate in, the thoughts that you think, and then how that affects the way you're navel gazing to a point where you don't need to be versus going out and doing the things you need to be doing. Right? Like, again, I am no perfect person. I do not have all my ducks in a row. I am not perfectly healed physically. I am not able to be involved in everything. I am no perfect ally. I'm still learning. But it's my job to do something where I can. Right? Imperfectly. Learning as I go. Getting better. And having my niche area that I focus on that some people think is unimportant and some people don't see as good enough. And you know what? It is what it is. We all have our role to play. So we must find our balance. Where can I keep my head above water? And then what do I have left over? Where can I look at the greater system so that I'm participating in the changing of the system versus getting caught in the micro of little issues, thinking the little issue is the thing? Because the little issue isn't the thing. The little issue is a result of the system. So the more we understand about the broader systems, the more we understand how our individual action in these individual places affects things. We do have to have the bigger picture in mind to help us make positive changes. So pay attention to the systems. Pay attention to the bigger picture. Educate yourself on the patterns and seeing that we've been here before. We've done this before, right? It is so important to see that this is not necessarily the only time this has ever happened. We have to look at our history. We have to look at our cycles. We have to look at the systems, the bigger picture, because that helps us figure out what to do about the individual things happening. And then you need to figure out for yourself what you have to offer and where you can offer it on a daily basis in a sustainable way where you do not drown yourself, and knowing that that will shift and change with time. There are going to be times where you have less resource left over, and that's okay. There are going to be times where you have more, and that's okay. Because again, it's what you do over time that matters. There isn't a moment. There isn't a savior. There isn't a thing. It's that spiral over time that creates change. It's the spiral over time of effort that creates change. So do your spiral over time. Let what you have to offer right now be enough for right now. Just don't give up. Okay? Because giving up guarantees we go backwards. Giving up guarantees the chaos happens. The only way we can be sure this is the end for us is if we give up. The only way to even find out what's possible for us in terms of positive change is if we don't give up. We can't wait to see it getting better before we start participating. We have to participate in order for it to get better. Okay? Don't look for signs of hope. Be the hope. Do not look for signs of hope. Be the sign of hope. Choose to be the sign of hope. And be that sign of hope imperfectly. Let it be imperfect. Let it be messy. Let yourself learn along the way. Because that is how it's always been done, and that is how it will always be done. Don't wait for the sign of hope. Be the sign of hope. And when you need help and you're drowning, ask for help. Ask someone to be your hope for you. Look for community. Watch these videos. You don't have to do it by yourself. Don't drown. Don't ask yourself to do more than you can. Okay? We can't afford to lose you. So do what you can and let it be enough. Okay? Okay. I hope that was helpful. I hope that was motivating in some way. Because your life matters. Your vote counts. We need you. Please do not give up. Every single one of us doing what we can is how we're going to get to where we can get. If we don't, that's how we guarantee it's a destruction. So it is a crescendo point. So what are we going to do with it? Are we going to be the hope? I think we are. Okay? Okay. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you later.